Good morning, everybody. Cheers. Welcome back to Cup of Jonah. So I apologize. Yesterday, I was out of it. I just was not feeling well at all, so I wasn't able to get on yesterday. and for Cup of Jonas, I missed you guys. The other thing that I wanted to say, just from housekeeping, I'll mention this again for folks who haven't arrived yet. At work right now, it's a very high pressure situation where I'm studying. I have another week and a half to study for the final licensing exam for my role, but full-time training has already started for this role. So starting Monday, I'll be in training all day from 8 a.m. on till 6 p.m. And then morning and evening before and after is when I have to get my study time in order to prepare for it and pass the exam, which is a 2.5 hour long exam. So it'll be a lot. So this coming week, and there will not be any Cup of Jonah this coming week because there's just no way I can, on top of everything else. And also, there's no way I can be here and there and that other at the same time. So unfortunately, we're going to have to take the week off here. But on another note, before we get into the chapter today, which is he presents arguments that those who wish to take away the knowledge of singulars from God. So he presents some arguments of people who say, well, God can't have knowledge of individual things. Okay, well, let's see what they say. All right, but before we do that, little teaser trailer. This is the book I was referring to. I had lent a copy to a friend years ago, and they never returned it. So I had to purchase another copy, and it just arrived yesterday. So I'm super excited. The Founding of Christendom. This is that Warren Carroll series that I was telling you about that is such a delightful read. It's not a dry history read at all. It's very, very well written, but it's also historically accurate. It's a lot of fun. So I'm thinking of reading this for our next book after we finish this volume. So tell me what your thoughts are. Hey, what's up, Meyer? So, okay. And of course, remember, Meyer has a show on the Phone Booth podcast, along with so many of the other Phone Booth crew over there. So make sure to check out phoneboothpodcast.substack.com. Pardon me. All right, here we go. The arguments of those who wish to take away the knowledge of singulars from God. Now, there are certain persons who are trying to take away the knowledge of singulars from the perfection of the divine knowledge. They use 7 ways to confirm their position. So there's an extensive footnote here that I think I actually will read. It's a footnote from the editor here. At first glance, he's referring, so chapter 63 through 71, so the next 8 chapters, forms a surprising development, since St. Thomas has already dealt with the problem of God's knowledge of other things, and especially the problem of proper knowledge of singulars. In reality, this section seems to form an elimination of contrary errors. Furthermore, the whole development hinges on certain texts of Aristotle, the consequences drawn from them by Averroes and Avicenna. Those are 2 of the great Eastern philosophers at the time. In Metaphysics and De Anima, Aristotle seems to say that a pure intellect does not know anything other than itself. It knows only the noblest object, nothing other than it, nothing lesser or lowly, and nothing evil. Applied to God, this would mean that God knows only himself. Averroes took Aristotle to mean exactly this in his comments on these Aristotelian texts. In the latter text, that was the Metaphysicorum, Averroes wrote that if there should be an intellect that was act without potency, such an intellect will not understand privation at all. Indeed, it will not understand anything outside itself. End quote. But Averroes did not say that God does not know things. He rather said that God knows things by knowing himself alone, and to that extent, in his own words, he who knows only the heat of fire is not said to know the nature of the heat in other hot things. He rather knows the nature of heat as heat. Avicenne, on the other side, had taken another line of development. He said that God understands things universally. He used the analogy of the astronomer to argue that just as the astronomer can know particulars universally and predict them, so God knows knows particulars universally. Neither the astronomer predicting an eclipse nor God knows the concrete singular in itself. This whole development of Thomas in this coming section here can be seen as an effort to show to and against the philosophers of consequence, saying, as they too said, that God is pure act. The knowledge of such God is creative source of things, present to them eternally, immediately, and without change, and reaching to the least of them in their minutest details. Okay. Somewhat interesting, but maybe not worth the read. All right, so the 7 ways that people object to God knowing singulars that Aristotle is going to present here. So remember, he's not going to rebut these arguments yet. He's just going to state them, so it's going to sound like he's arguing or that he's stating these as his opinion, but he'll counter them. The first way is based on the very condition of singularity. For the principle of singularity is designated matter. We've talked about this before. Singularity, I didn't use the word singularity. I wouldn't have translated as singularity. It's more individuation, the principle of individuation, which means like when you have 10,000 ants, what makes it this ant different than that ant if they have basically the same form? It's the matter that form is in. Makes them an individual, so the principle of individuation. For the principle of, I'm going to change it, individuation is designated matter, and hence it seems that singulars cannot be known by an immaterial power, given that all knowledge takes place through certain assimilations. So too in our own case, only those powers apprehend singulars that make use of material organs, for example, the imagination, the senses, and the like. But because it is immaterial, our intellect does not know singulars, much less, therefore, does the divine intellect know singulars, being the most removed from matter. Thus, in no way does it seem that God can know singulars. The second way, so you could call it the second objection, is based on the fact that singulars do not always exist. Therefore, either they will be known by God always, or they will be known at some time and not at another. The first alternative is impossible, since that of which God does not, since of that which does not exist, there can be no knowledge. Knowledge deals only with what is true, and what does not exist cannot be true. Nor is the second alternative possible, since, as we have shown, the knowledge of the divine intellect is absolutely unchangeable. The third objection is based on the fact that not all singulars come to be of necessity, but some happen contingently. Hence, there can be a certain knowledge of them only when they exist. Now that knowledge is certain which cannot be deceived. But all knowledge of the future contingent can be deceived when the contingent is future. But all knowledge of the contingent can be deceived when the contingent is future, since the opposite of what is held by knowledge can happen. For if it could not happen, then if it could not happen, it would then be necessary. Hence it is that we cannot have any knowledge of future contingents, but only of a certain conjectural estimation. Now we must suppose that all God's knowledge is, as we have shown, most certain and infallible. Because of his immutability, as we have said, it is impossible for God to begin to know something anew. From all this, it seems to follow that God does not know contingent singulars. The fourth way is based on the fact that the will is the cause of some singulars. Before it exists, an effect can be known only in its cause. Since before it begins to be, this is the only way for an effect to exist. But the motions of the will can be known with certitude only by the one willing in whose power they lie. It seems impossible, therefore, that God should have any eternal knowledge of such singulars as are caused by the will. The sixth objection is based on the infinity of singulars. The infinite as such is unknown. Everything that is known in a manner measured by the comprehension of the knower, since this measure is nothing other than the certain certification of the measured thing, that is why every art repudiates the infinite. But singulars are infinite, at least potentially. It seems impossible, then, that God knows singulars. The sixth objection is based on the very lowliness of singulars, since the dignity of a science is in a way determined from the dignity of the object. The lowliness of the knowable object seems to rebound to the lowliness of the science. But the divine intellect is most noble. Its nobility, therefore, forbids that it should know certain of the lowliest among singulars. The eighth objection is based on the evil found in some singulars. For since that which is known is found in the knower in a certain way, and there can be no evil in God, as was shown above, it seems to follow that God has absolutely no knowledge of evil and privation. This is known only by an intellect that is in potency, for privation can exist only in potency. From this it follows that God has no knowledge of the singulars in which there is evil and privation. That's a good objection, huh? Okay. So then it says, to remove chapter 64, the order of what is to be said on the divine knowledge. To remove this error, and likewise to show the perfection of the divine intellect, we must diligently look into the truth of each of the above ways, so that what is opposed to the truth may be refuted. We shall first show, then, that the divine intellect knows singulars. Second, we shall show that it knows what does not exist in act. Third, that it knows future contingents with an infallible knowledge. Fourth, that it knows the motions of the will. Fifth, that it knows infinite things. Sixth, that it knows every lowly and least among beings. Seventh, that it knows evils and all privations and defects. So, when we come back, so he's going to spend a chapter on each of those 7 objections, which is great. And what we'll do when we get to that, what I'll do is I will keep a bookmark at the objection, because I don't think he's going to restate the objection. He's just going to prove the point. So I'll reread the objection and then read the chapter that's in response to that objection. Because it looks like the next 7 chapters, he's for the next 7 chapters, he's going to be taking those 7 objections one by one and refuting them. So that'll be nice. So to reiterate, we're going to need to pause for 1 week next week, because of situations at work, I have training for the new role that's going to start at 8 a.m. every morning. And on top of that, I'm doing the final prep for just over a week. I'm going to be taking the final exam for licensing and testing. So it's about a 2.5 hour exam. So there's a lot of material there. And I need to prepare for all of that outside of the training that I'm going to be in for my new role from 8 to 6. So I'm going to have to find time before and after to really grind and just lock in. So I'm not going to be doing much of anything else for the next week. So unfortunately, that includes putting a Cup of Jonah on pause for a week. So, but we hope to be back. Well, we will be back. Depending on once I'm actually activated in this new role, what time my obligation starts in the morning, I might have to move this Cup of Jonah up a bit and do it earlier, in which case it'll always be pinned at the top of my Twitter profile in case it's too early for you. But also, it should be good. Good morning, Meyer. Thank you for the prayers. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm not worried. I just need to focus. So the Series 7 exam is the one that I did last week and a half ago or something, and that's a 3 hour and 45 minute long exam, and it's a bear. It is a bear. So we did well there. Thanks be to God. So one more. That was the second of 3. One more test that's not as daunting. It's only 2.5 hours, but a lot more technical, I guess you could say. So, but yeah, say a prayer for me. And I look forward to, I do believe this next Monday, New Horizons open once this last licensing exam is passed. So let's go. So I do appreciate the prayers. Yeah, thank you, Meyer. Let's get her done. Amen. All right. Well, when we come back week after next, we'll tackle those objections to God's knowledge. And it is a great question if you think about it, because those are great objections. Because how do I have free will? Kind of touches on the conversation we had the other day with Shiva here on Cup of Jonah. Like how can I have a free will if God already knows what I'm gonna do? How could God already know what I'm gonna do if I haven't done it yet? Right? So really, there's a lot of things that kind of are hard to wrap our mind around. But very good questions, important questions to understand as we get towards the end of this first volume here of the Summa Contra Gentiles. We're getting there. We've got about 35 chapters left, more or less. Just to reiterate, in case you were not here in the very beginning, I think we're going to do this book by Warren Carroll after this as kind of a break. But it is such an awesome history book. It's really the thing that made me fall in love with history. This guy is very well researched, and it's a beautiful. He starts all the way back at the creation, and then this whole first volume is basically up until the time of Christ. So this is all leading up to the incarnation, but it's really well written. It's and his philosophy is he follows the stories of persons who made the decisions that shaped nations, right? So how do you it's not his philosophy, so to speak, on history is showing that, like, it's people's lives with that. When we see someone, it's not political movements or philosophies necessarily or systems of thought that move nations, but it's human beings with broken lives and hearts and pasts, with hopes and aspirations, with frustrations and traumas, all of these things. And he really tries to get into the mind of and try to understand the people who made these decisions, that sometimes resulted in whole nations disappearing, right? So very, very interesting perspective. So I figured we kind of dip our toes in that a little bit after we finish this with volume 1 here. Take a break from the more technical philosophical reading, go to something a little bit more pleasant and story-like, and then come back to volume 2 after we read that. So it should be blast. But all right, folks. Well, I got to tackle the day. Always a pleasure to be with you guys. Cheers, and we will see you on Monday evening for Mainstream Monday with Ted, Snoop, and I. Don't forget the phone booth. Ted, Bill, and Vince have their live stream tomorrow, the Saturday live stream. But in general, to stay up on it all, don't forget to check out phoneboothpodcast.substack.com. Have a great weekend, guys.